Welcome to the Live Like Eden podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Years ago, out of nowhere, I found myself in a radical shift in consciousness that took me over 20 years to fully wrap my head around. Yes, that's right. It took me a long time, and without any warning, down the rabbit hole of darkness I went. Now I'm here to share with you all the insights of awakening, spirituality, health, the energetic world we're living in, and my absolute favorite topic, just how crazy the ego mind can be. These subjects are designed to help you understand the awakening process, to open your mind, and prepare you for your own unique spiritual journey toward inner peace. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's discussion. Before we get started with today's show, I want to share with you something I've been working on. I have created a quiz just for you to see where you are on your own unique spiritual path. Everybody loves a quiz, right? You can go to my website at livelikeeden.com, click on the quiz pop-up, and answer 10 quick questions. You'll get an immediate response emailed to you with your results, a personalized podcast playlist including 5 Live Like Eden episodes that will offer you assistance where you currently are. And I've also thrown in a few bonus episodes that you'll receive a few days later. If you're a spiritual junkie, you're in the midst of awakening, or you're simply curious where you might be in your own spiritual process, check it out and feel free to share with your friends who might be interested too. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm really excited for this show today because it's something that speaks volumes to me in my life, and I'm going to share this to you today from direct experience. We're going to talk about mastering the nervous system, and I will provide a fight or flight guide for survival. This is not going to be like a guide you're going to pick up and see do steps A, B, C, and D, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of your problems will be solved. I'm going to speak to you today from a genuine, honest place of trial and error with the nervous system. For those of you that struggle with fight or flight response for any reason, whether it's something physical that happened to you, you're holding on to a memory and it's just going off all the time, or you have post-traumatic stress. In my situation, when I was 26 years old, my world flipped upside down in one instant. Prior to this moment, I was living what I thought was a totally normal, happy life. I was newly married, owned a yoga studio, and life was fine, or at least I thought. Out of nowhere, while I was teaching a yoga class, a huge burst of energy blew up through my spine and into my head, and all of a sudden, I had a nervous system that was just on fire. From this moment on, I felt an incredible streaming of energy. I would call them vibrational frequencies that were just streaming through my system constantly. And I had no clue what was happening to me. Not a clue. And when you have no clue, you're already on high alert, right? Your nervous system's already going, what? But there was an initial moment and an energy within that went off inside of me that changed my entire life forever. I never thought in a million years I was about ready to go down a rabbit hole of unbelievable change and transformation. I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know it was possible. And when you're blindsided like that, and you have no one around you who's ever experienced it before, you are lost at sea. I was literally flailing around like a fish. For years and years and years, in and out of doctors, all kinds of alternative therapists with no help whatsoever on what was happening to me. But something powerful had gone off within me, and I was having crazy symptoms all over the place. Mostly just a feeling of streaming energy everywhere, and it was very uncomfortable. And at the time, I didn't have any knowledge or language to communicate what I was actually feeling. It just felt so surreal. It was like feeling sensations you didn't even know existed. So it's very hard to put into language. The other thing that was happening is after this initial eruption, my nervous system always just felt heightened. It felt like something new had happened inside of me. Something very, very different was occurring. This goes on for years, and I had many different experiences and more energy surges and more shifts in my awareness that were happening, bursts of energy into the head, and the nervous system would just react, and fight or flight became my new best friend. I was having trouble all over the place. I was so stimulated all the time, and my nervous system could not handle the amount of information that I was now pulling in. Can you imagine if one day you are in tunnel vision, and this tunnel vision you believe to be just your normal vision? You didn't even know there was another way to see. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get a burst of energy and your vision expands. I call it universal or peripheral vision. All of a sudden, you're taking in more information into your system than you ever have before. Seen and unseen information. And now what happens to the nervous system or the computer system? It starts to glitch, right? It just doesn't have the ability yet to handle this amount of stimulus. And because we're all living in a very stimulating world, you don't have to have had this Kundalini arousal or some strange mystical experience to know that overstimulation really affects the nervous system. Since all of us are now walking around and we're multitasking, right? Talking, looking at the screen, scrolling, blah, 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 all these different things, and then seeing a ton of stuff just blasting into our visual field all the time, news ads, marketing, whatever it is, it's bombarding the system. And our systems have not been adjusted for that amount of information. So you could say that all of us might be adjusting to the amount of stimulation we're receiving. And this is why you could see a lot of people having trouble with anxiety and panic and all this stuff, because the system is not adjusted for that. Now, is it possible that the system can upgrade? Is it possible that the nervous system can be trained and adjusted? And the only way I can answer this is through my direct experience. Yes, the nervous system can change. It can transform. It can be taught. Just like anything in your body or anything in life, things can change. This is the world of constant change, right? So everything can evolve and adjust. I mean, you could say that in evolution, the theory of evolution, that the human species is always adapting to the external environment. Throughout all these years, we're adapting. So when this happened to me, this explosion of energy that just changed my life and took me down a rabbit hole of darkness for so many years, flailing around with no tools, no understanding of how to calm and work with this nervous system. I didn't have the guide. I desperately wanted a manual that told me how to do this, but I didn't have one. So I had to use trial and error, practice, and willingness to figure it out. And any of you that are listening are going to have to do the same thing with your own nervous system, right? It's how does it work for you? What are you experiencing? Really getting in and understanding what's happening. What's triggering all of this energy that I'm feeling? What's triggering this panic attack today? What's triggering this anxiety or fight or flight response right now in this moment? And most importantly, which I rarely come across, you can see all kinds of blog posts and information out there about all the things to do to keep the nervous system calm. But very few people talk about what to do when you are actually in the middle of the fight or flight response. And that's what I want to talk about today. What do you do when it's actually happening? This is not a show today to go over the science behind it. There's a lot of that out there. And for those of you that want to know more about the actual triggers in the system and what's going on, there's so much information. You can go dig in and research it all. And it can be helpful. And the reason it can be helpful is that your mind then begins to understand what's happening physically. So it can serve as a calming mechanism for the fight or flight response, to just have some understanding about what's going on. But this show today is just going to be about real life experience and what you can do in the moment. Because that's how we're all living life. We're living it moment to moment to moment. I will give you some ideas and tools and insights that you can practice regularly so that when you're in the middle of a response that goes off out of nowhere, you can start practicing and implementing these into your life. Now, I'm not here to tell you it's going to be perfect. You're not going to get it right away. This is an ongoing learning. To this day, I still learn how to use the tools that I've developed to tweak them here and there when new things happen in my life. So it's an evolving door. So maybe some of you have had tools to use in your life and then all of a sudden they don't work anymore. They just don't work. And so you have to develop new ones. And it's an opportunity to start going a little deeper into maybe what you can do now. To start off, very basically, the fight or flight response is a necessary one for all of us. As human beings, the fight or flight response is there if we sense danger or a threat of any kind. Typically, it's a physical threat. It's an obvious threat. There's a threat in the area and you run and get out of there. You know, there's a huge hurricane coming and you have a lot of energy to get prepared and leave the area. You know, there's a lot of reasons that we have the amount of adrenaline our bodies are capable of producing, right? So fight or flight is going to fight the situation, battle it out like wild animals in the jungle, or you're going to run. You're going to want to run and get out of there. And then there's another one, the freeze response. If any of you have ever had this, ooh, not a fun one, is it? God, it sucks. It's like the whole body just freezes up and you're like paralyzed. This isn't so great because if there really is a threat and you're frozen, it's not going to be helpful. So there's levels. There's levels to the way that the nervous system is reacting. And that's all that's happening. The nervous system is reacting, and then it's reacting to something. And then it's up to you to figure out what is it reacting to. Some of it might be obvious. It's physically in front of you. Some of it might require therapy and psychotherapy to really discover what is it going on that's triggering all this. And then I'm going to offer a deeper insight later on that maybe it's just really one simple thing that we're playing out here in the world. So let's get started with this. I'm going to break these tools down today into 3 parts. And I think these are just basic ways to think about how to help yourself. We're going to go over the physical ways, the mental ways, and the spiritual ways. Easy. Keep it simple. Getting too in depth about all this just makes it more complicated. I want you to think about it as you're going to feel yourself through the situation. You're going to really listen to your guidance. For any of you listening that are really struggling, like really struggling to the point where you're just isolated, you're immobile, you can't function, I just want to say I've been there. It's a horrible feeling to feel like you can't get out of this feeling of stuck, no matter what set it off, or that you'll never be able to move past it. And I want you to know that you can. There's always subtle shifts of thinking, subtle shifts in perception can really alter how the experience unfolds. But when you're blocked and enclosed and resisting or thinking it's impossible, that can really, really take its toll on you. So I get that. First, let's talk about the physical body. And things that you can do naturally to help keep your physical body healthy and the nervous system happy are to do what? Eat a healthy diet. Include lots of fresh fruits and vegetables into your diet. Make sure that you're avoiding as many processed foods and oils as possible. Just eat well as you can. Exercise, obvious, move the body. Whatever exercise that works for you too. Really listen. There's times in your life where you might really love running, and then all of a sudden, you can't do that anymore. Now you're doing something else. And now you feel called to do deep stretching or Tai Chi or just simply walking around the neighborhood. Right? You don't have to do some huge exercise, but just exercising the physical body. What about getting out in nature? Grounding yourself, getting in touch with the electromagnetic frequency of the ground and the earth and the sunlight, working in the garden, getting in the soil, taking your shoes off, walking on the dirt or the grass or wherever you are, just really connecting, getting your body all of the natural electromagnetic rays that it can. These are things that you can do regularly just to keep the physical body healthy, stable, and feeling good. But what do you do when the fight or flight response goes off? What do you do? because all of the exercise and the good food I've been eating and the grounding and all these things, I'm still dealing with this, right? So it's not like just because I'm eating well and doing all these things that my nervous system isn't going to have an experience, right? I learned that. The better I ate, the more energy I would take on. And then it was like, wow, I had no idea it was possible to take on this much energy. I had no clue that the body was capable of such a thing. So number one, the first thing when you're experiencing a fight or flight response and it's instantaneous and all of a sudden your adrenaline's going through the roof and now you're what? Terrified, right? What's the first thing that happens? You freak out. You're like, shit, what's happening? I'm dying, right? I mean, that's how quickly the mind is on its deathbed. And it feels like that. It can really feel like that because the power is so intense. And many people experience what? Chest pain, increased heart rate, breathing is out of control. All of a sudden, you can't breathe, can't get enough air. You're starting to feel out there. Lots of things can happen. Personally, I'm not somebody who experiences the shortness of breath or anything like that. No chest pain, nothing. I just suddenly go out of body. Boom. That's how my system operates. Your system might do something different. So it's important that you identify how your system is reacting in that particular experience. Let me give you an example. Just last week, I dropped my two daughters off at school and I pulled out of the parking lot and I was sitting at a stoplight. Just a little background information. I hate driving. I've had a lot of experiences with energy in the car that I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing anymore. So I'm sitting at this stoplight and everything's fine. And all of a sudden my system instantly, like out of nowhere, just boom, surge. And I felt like, oh, there it goes. And I've had this happen so many times over the period of 20 years that I'm very used to this feeling. But it still is alarming when it happens. So it can just happen out of nowhere. What do you do? What did I do? Well, one thing to think about is if you're stimulated by anything around you, close your eyes if you can. I was in the car, but I was sitting at a stoplight, so I could close my eyes for a minute and really going in and activating deep breathing of any kind that works for you. Personally, I like 2 long, deep inhales back to back. Inhale again as far as you can, and then it's a long, slow exhale. And you do it again. Even if you're still freaking out, you do it again. And you're watching. And for me, because this has happened so many times, it's like there's an awareness there. And the awareness is saying, there it goes again. There goes the body's response. And on some level, I already know that the body will go through its rebalancing. And I trust that it will do that. I no longer mentally panic and think the world's ending. Because when it first started and I had no clue how to calm the system, that would happen. And, the more your mind freaks out, the worse that it gets. So I sat there for a few minutes and then a little part of my thinking mind went, are you kidding me? Is this really happening again? And there was nothing physically threatening. I looked around, there's nothing happening. But it's just as simple as that. And then you know what I did? I picked up the phone and called my husband. And I go, can you believe I'm sitting at this light and this is happening? And I talked to him and I drove home. That can be really helpful, that if you're aware of what's going on, you've activated some deep breathing, you're doing it in cycles, you do as many rounds of that breathing, that inhale again, and one long, slow exhale. Do the cycle at least 5 to 10 times and just see, are you better off or worse than before? 9 times out of 10, the system will be calmer, and then you just keep doing it. But talking to someone is really helpful too. I used to feel like if I could just pull back in and talk to someone, whether it was somebody in the car or I called someone, it just pulls you back in and grounds, and you talk through it. If you have somebody that will listen, if not, talk out loud. Start talking out loud. Create a dialogue with yourself, or as we'll get into later, your spiritual self. This can really help. I know it might seem crazy. You're like driving, talking to yourself, but who the hell knows, right? Everybody's talking on the phone, so nobody will know. You look at these things that are happening. That's just a very simple example, and I was in no danger. Nothing even freaking happened. That's what's so amazing. Nothing happened, but something is happening within my system. So regardless if it's a threat or not, I know something's happening. And now, because I've been doing this long enough, I know exactly how to get it calmed down. But for those of you that are new to it, it's really taking a toll on your life. You just first identify immediately, are you in danger? That's the first thing you ask. Am I in danger? And if you are, you react to that. If you're in danger, you get out of there, right? If there's some immediate threat, get out, scream for help, whatever, call for help, do whatever you need to do. But if you're not in any danger, and this is where I'm coming from, you're not in any physical danger. You now know that your system is heightened. There's no physical threat. Can you get out of the environment you're in? Can you do that? Can you step out of wherever you are that might be contributing? Maybe there's some overstimulating energy that you're in, or the environment you're in, your sensory system's overloaded, whatever it is. Can you get yourself out of that situation? That was the next thing. So 1, are you in danger? 2, can you get out of there? And if you can get out of there, then you sit, you stand, you do whatever you need to do and activate that breathing that I just talked about. The inhales, 1, 2, and a long exhale. And you do that several times. Now, if you're in absolute freak out mode, I can speak from experience on this. If your system is so heightened that breathing just seems out of the question and it's not going to do anything right now, the other thing to do is physically, because you've got a lot of adrenaline pumping, right? Your heart rate's going. And when does this typically happen? When you're exercising, when you need to actually run. If you can, run. I don't know where you are, but can you run? Can you walk fast? Can you run in place? Can you stretch your arms up and down? Can you move the body? Sometimes just getting the body to mirror the response might actually help. And that has helped me in the past, where I just move the body. I can't sit still. The body is literally like I could run a marathon right now. Most of the time we're trying to calm the system. In the beginning, when that doesn't seem possible, because there are levels to this where it's not possible, your body's freaking out, then speed walk or do something to get the body moving with the energy, and then start slowing down, and then start the breathing, standing in place and slowing everything down. When the fight or flight goes off, the body runs its course. The more and more you get comfortable knowing this is key, because what's the number one thing I just said earlier that happens is you're terrified. You think you're going to die. But if you notice a repeating pattern, then you can start identifying when it's happening, why it's happening. And now I'm okay to say, there it goes again. There it goes again. And I can start doing the physical things that help me. And you have to do trial and error for yourself. What helps you? Because it could be totally different for every single one of us. I don't believe in the one size fits all for this. There's really unique tools for all of us to eventually get you to the calm. And it doesn't matter how it happens. It doesn't. It's whatever works. So I just mentioned, if you can get out of the environment, pull yourself out of it. Maybe you're in a crowded environment and you could step to the back of the room. You could step into the bathroom. You could literally just leave wherever you are. Maybe you could just explain to someone, I really am so sorry, but I am suddenly not feeling well. I really need to leave, and I'll get back in touch with you. You don't really have to explain yourself right then and there, especially if you're in a very heightened, panicked moment. Now, if you cannot get out of the situation you're in, for example, sitting on an airplane, sitting on a bus, sitting on a roller coaster, right? Sometimes you are stuck in a position and you cannot get out of it, right? Then what do you do? What do you do if you're sitting on an airplane and all of a sudden your fight or flight goes crazy? And a lot of people are afraid to fly and they're just a nervous wreck. I'm not afraid to fly at all. I actually love flying, but I have such a sixth sense with energy that when I'm around a lot of stuff and people, I start picking up frequency and vibration of everything around me. And sometimes when you're stuck in a space where there's a lot going on, my nervous system will start doing its thing. And it's just a communication. I know now that I'm picking up a lot of information. And that's another way to look at what's happening in the situation. Instead of looking at it as a terrifying, horrible moment, what is being communicated to me right now? I need to get into balance. That's probably the number one thing, right? I'm feeling all this stuff and I'm losing it. This is a communication. How do I bring myself back into balance? How does the body simmer down? How do I calm my mind? So you're on the airplane and this happens. And you could put yourself maybe in another situation that you've been in where you've had something happen. But you're on the plane. All of a sudden, your nervous system goes into heightened mode. You're in fight or flight. Now, I'm going to share with you, because I've had this happen before. I was sitting on a plane coming home from a trip several years ago. I was with my whole family, my kids. We're taxiing after we landed to the gate. And I fly into Denver International Airport, which is a massive airport. Every time I go out there, I'm like, why are there so many people here? It's just huge. And it takes forever to get the plane to the gate. So we're taxiing and I'm fine. Had a fine flight. Everything's calm. And all of a sudden, a shot like that Kundalini just boom through the central channel of my system and just goes shoo. And all of a sudden, nervous system's reacting. I can't go anywhere, right? I'm sitting in the middle seat. Great place to sit, by the way. And I'm stuck. I can't physically go anywhere. So what do you do then? I can't get off the plane. The seatbelt sign is still on, so I can't get up and bolt to the bathroom or doing that physical movement to match what the system is doing. So when you're sitting there, you can close your eyes. Immediately close your eyes, go within. Do the breathing in and out. Do it several times. Squeeze your fists, get in your body. Feel your body. And I mean this because you're feeling so much adrenaline, it's pulling you out. You have to get yourself back in, especially in situations like this, right? Especially when you're new to it. So you're pulling in. You can take your shoes off and you can grip your feet and put your feet flat on that carpet, as disgusting as that might be, you know. But you're pulling in, you're grounding the system. You can move your arms up, stretch them up, roll your head, do some neck rolls, bend over, put your hands on the ground if you can, if you're flexible enough. Just hang over your legs and move that way. Continue the breathing until the system is calming down. The hardest thing to do is when you're stuck, to be stuck in a situation and have to pull into calm. And if you have to utilize those physical movements to do it, do it. Who cares what somebody thinks sitting next to you? Just say, yeah, I'm having a little bit of a moment. Make light of it. You're going to be okay. The system is just reacting. And as fast as the reaction happens, it can just as quickly come back to normal, especially if you practice and do this over and over and over. And then you're starting to develop a trust, not only that your physical system knows how to balance itself, but that you absolutely can work with it instead of running or fleeing from it. So we're wrapping our arms around it, embracing it, instead of running and hiding and I don't want to deal. The more that you run and hide is not making the situation any easier, and you're not fine-tuning any skills whatsoever. You're just fleeing. Now, that's an option always. And I would always recommend, if you're in dire straits and fleeing is the only option, you flee and then you relax. That's okay. But as time goes on and you know what's happening, you can work with this. There's a major understanding going on that you know it's okay. And then, as now we get into the mental aspect of what do you do during fight or flight, is there's a stepping out of the thinker, the one that's just reacting in fear, right? Holding panic, I'm dying, blah, 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 all the crap the mind wants to tell you. This doesn't have to be an extreme fight or flight. This can just be in the daily stresses of life. You're just stressed out all the time. And there's an elevated fight or flight. It's not extreme, right? It's not like you're running out and dodging everything in your life and you're hiding in your closet like I was, but you're literally living in a heightened state regularly. This is also another form of fight or flight. So I like to say there's levels. There's levels to all of this. But the more you can pull out of the thinker, that reactionary thinker that wants to tell you doom and gloom, it wants to tell you the worst possible thing, pull out of it, watch it, and notice it. Oh, there I go again. Not only now is my body panicking, but my mind is right there with it, meeting it. And what happens when the mind is right there meeting it? It's amplifying the physical. You can think about a situation that's not even happening and create physical responses in the body. We've talked about that before. But when it's actually happening, When you're in full throttle with fight or flight and you start panicking in your mind, oh no, right? The worst. It's awful. I get it. So you step out of your mind's thinking capacity right there and you watch. And you watch what your mind is doing. And this is the larger awareness in you. This is the observer. You're now in that non-judgmental open space viewing the experience in lifetime, in real time. Not doing all these exercises when it's not happening. You're doing them as they happen. This is so important. In order to learn how to maneuver fight or flight, you have to do the work when it's happening. You have to. As scary as it is, as horrible as that sounds, because it's so awful when you feel like you cannot function in the world because of your sensitive nervous system. But this sensitivity doesn't have to be looked at as a bad thing. It really is looked at as a bad thing from the medical point of view, from the psychological point of view. This is a horrible thing. Is it? Maybe something else is really going on here. Maybe those of us that have these very attuned systems are in communication with something greater. Maybe our communication system is trying to teach us something. Like I said earlier, I need to pull into balance. But maybe there's other things going on too. Maybe I'm actually picking up on some unseen information. It's not just nothing's happening and I'm freaking out. Something might be happening, but because you can't see it, your mind is telling you it's not possible. So the mental aspect is so huge. Not only do you have to figure out the physical things to do to cope with the body, but you have to bring the mind into it too. So they work together as a unit. The mind begins understanding the body, what the body's doing, why it's doing it. And for you, you might need to sit down with yourself or with the help of a therapist or somebody else who has larger insight into it and discover what are those key triggers that are making the system do that. What's going on in my psyche? What's going on in my thinking, in my past experience? Am I reliving and replaying a memory? Yes, that's possible. So identify what is going on in the mind. And then once you identify it, then you can observe it. You can pull out of the grabbing a hold of the mind and step out of it and just watch. There it goes again. There goes my body again, and there goes my mind freaking out. Instead of playing along in this game, I'm going to recognize that my body and my mind have all of the power to reverse this situation and come into homeostasis or balance. And not only do they have the power to do that, I'm willing to give it time until that happens. Knowing full well it's not going to happen in 2 seconds. It's not going to happen the first time you try it. It's not going to happen perfectly all the time. You might have some real wins and feel great about it, and then you get hammered one day and it's like, oh, there we go. I feel like I'm going backwards. The mind is going to tell you that. But each experience is just an opportunity for you to fine-tune your skills. That's all. And then instead of dreading every single moment or every single encounter with fight or flight, you're now going to say, I know what's happening. I understand what's happening. And now I can utilize the tools that I'm creating, whether it's physical things I'm doing, breathing in different ways and letting go, and integrating these things together to allow the system to calm. Even if your system is not wanting to calm right away, it will come down. It doesn't sustain that for very long. If you get a shot of energy through the system, it really does not last. That initial moment is like a surge, and then it's sort of tapering down. For any of you who've had a child, it's like when you have a contraction and it reaches its peak and then it relaxes, and the rest of the contraction on the back end is relaxing. It's the same kind of thing. Another thing to think about with the mental reaction is Can you create a space physically? And if you can't create it physically during the moment of fight or flight, can you create it within yourself? Can a space within you open up to start seeing your mind? That's a very different thing, isn't it, than just creating a physical space. Like I said on the airplane when I was sitting there, I could not create a physical place for me to go sit away from everybody else, right? You go within, you close your eyes, you shut off the external stimuli into the brain, into the visual field, and you start visualization if you need to. You're sitting in a serene forest, you're on the beach in the Maldives, you are in a beautiful field of grass, whatever you like to visualize. You're calming the system, doing the breathing. This can all happen inside of you. You're creating a large awareness and joining with it. And when you join with this awareness is when you can watch the thoughts. It's when you can start to shift out of that reactive thinking and just witness them without grabbing a hold of the panic. You might say, oh, my body's panicking, but I know everything is okay. I've surveyed the scene. I know this all too well now. This is a familiar feeling. And now I'm willing to do what it takes to allow the system to calm, whether that's sitting longer, whether that's stepping out of the environment or going inward on the airplane. Another thing to think about with the mental aspect of this is, what is your relationship with fear? This is so huge. And I lived fear for at least 5 years hardcore, at least 5, just like blowing up in my face, terrified of the unknown. The fear was just boiling up and without anything in my physical world threatening me. And then it was going to this very deep place of a spiritual existential threat of non-existence. The whole identity is crumbling and this whole thing is coming up. And it's just amazing how the body will react to this. But once I understood what fear was about, once I understood that fear was simply really afraid of that non-existence of its identity, and I traced it all the way to that spot. And for you, let's say you're afraid of flying, or you're afraid of snakes or spiders, or afraid of crowds, or afraid of speaking in public, or whatever it is. Name it, whatever it is for you. Trace it. Well, what happens if that happens on the stage? Okay, and then what? I fall to the ground, and then what? And you eventually go, right, to the death, and what's beyond death, and is there anything beyond that? You can just keep it going. And then you can recognize that the ego's fear really boils down to the fear of non-existence. It's just right there. Like I said earlier in the show, is there really just one trigger that is playing out in a multitude of ways for all of us, whether it's your physical traumas and experiences you have in the world? Is there really something deeper? And if I could access that deeper place right away, every time it happens in my mind, I sort of say, there it is. That fear is there. And when you see it clearly, then you can start to understand it. You can accept it. You can almost say it's okay. That would be a very natural, normal thing for our psyche to experience. Then you start opening the door to now where we're going to end the show, is to the spiritual realm. And how do you access all three of these as you go through fight or flight and mastering your own nervous system? Talk about a job. Not only do you learn how to calm the physical, watch the mental, blend these two together, but it's a gateway into that larger field of awareness where you connect with the spiritual. And what I say eventually, after all this practice and implementing different tools, is where you hand over your experience to the spiritual. This is a different way of living, totally different. It doesn't mean you don't access the other tools you have, but you now are in direct connection with spirit, trusting that you're always in good hands, that I can allow the flow to move through my body. I can allow the thoughts to leave my mind, and I can allow this experience to simmer. because I know that I'm always okay, no matter what is happening on the physical, no matter what the hell's going on in my mind. There's a deeper aspect of self with a capital S, the essence of who we really are. You could say that all these bodily reactions, the fight or flight, the mental freakouts, are all blocks to prevent us from seeing this huge guide sitting within each and every one of us. Every single one of you listening has your own tools to enter the kingdom within you, to enter that spiritual gateway. And if it takes some fight or flight responses and some freakouts and some fear of annihilation to get you to that point, then be grateful. And in my experience, that's exactly where it led me. All that fear and fear of everything that was happening existentially in my mind led me to the gateway to spirit. It took me right there. And although it was miserable while it was happening, I was panicked and hated every moment of it and didn't understand what was happening to me. It led me to this acceptance that something greater is there to guide me. And when you can access this as you navigate your nervous system, as you navigate the physical, somehow everything works out as it should. You start to see the connections that there's always something there to help you, whether it was a person, a calm space, somebody said something to you to calm you down. Really watch it. There's always some protection. I had to go back in all my experiences, and there were so many of them, hundreds and hundreds of experiences, where I always went back after they happened and said, even in the worst of it, I was always taken care of. I was always okay, even when I thought I wasn't. That's a huge reframing and reshifting of your mind. It's a total transformation and shift in consciousness. So when you're thinking about connecting with the spiritual side now, let's say you want to get in touch with your spiritual side, but you just feel like you're not getting anywhere. Drop the expectation of what that looks like. I think a lot of people that say, well, I want to get in touch with my spiritual guides or my guidance or the Holy Spirit or the universe, whatever term, it really doesn't matter. Use a term that works for you. I want to access this power. For me, it just felt like this vastness. I didn't feel like it was some individual guide or anything like that. It was just this large presence. When you can get comfortable with it doesn't need to be a certain way, that I don't need to actually physically hear commands in my ear on what to do, right? I think it can be a big misconception that your guidance has to be literally spoken to you or somebody needs to show you the way. It's really about letting go of all of that and trusting in each moment that unfolds as it will is your guidance. All those moments are your teachers. That's your spiritual teaching. And sometimes it doesn't look so hot, right? It's like, oh, I just fell flat on my face right there. And now I'm going to have a little pity party to show for it. We all do that. That's the human experience. When you can learn to laugh at it, lighten up, accept that every moment is your guide, this is the connection. Every single moment. So when you get comfortable, create a relationship with your spiritual essence or your guidance. Sit down, take 5 minutes, release from everything you're doing, turn off the screens, sit somewhere that's comfortable for you and see what you discover. Listen and just be. Practice being. You might get people that'll tell you to do all these different meditations and these guided practices, but one of the biggest things that helped me in my life was just sitting and being with no agenda, emptying my mind, emptying everything and just sitting there. And then eventually you access this huge vastness, this awareness that's there. And then once you have that and you know how to tap into it, then you can implement it as you're going through these freakouts with the nervous system, with the fight or flight, and you become a master. You're now viewing the experience from a much wiser perspective than from the small self who's going to panic and freak out and feel like it has no tools to do anything. One thing I want to leave you with before we end today's show is never be afraid to ask for help. Never be afraid to ask for help physically, mentally, or spiritually. Ask your spiritual guidance for help. Help me. I need help. Show me the way. Let me be open enough to see this in a different way. Let me be open enough to see it through the eyes of the wiser teacher. For so many years, I was looking for somebody to just magically make my experience go away. That suddenly the nervous system would adjust. And I will be honest, it did. Eventually it adjusted. And now I'm just fine-tuning all the time. But maybe, just maybe, there's a learning that needs to happen. Maybe these experiences with the nervous system are communications where you need to become the student. Develop your own unique skill set and to see why this experience is happening and what you can do to minimize the situation. Because you absolutely can. I hope this show today gives you the power and emboldens you to shift from that fearful, panicked, anxiety-ridden place when you have a fight or flight response and the nervous system is in panic, that you absolutely can work with this. It's a sign that you can work with it. You have the ability to shift and calm the system in any of those ways that we discussed earlier, through the physical, the mental, and then the spiritual. And eventually, it's a combination of all three working together. And you're fine-tuning it all the time, riding the waves, learning, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. And you become a master of your nervous system, always taking notes, always seeing how you can improve the next situation, right? Or the next experience. And then you almost welcome it because you know you're in good hands. You know it's going to be okay. And sometimes, if your system is doing that, it's obviously capable of doing it, right? I mean, there must be something in the nervous system that it's allowed to do it, or it wouldn't happen in the first place. So I hope this helps. I hope that you can begin to master your own nervous system. If any of you are struggling, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you. It's really difficult when you don't know what the hell to do, right? But I hope these very basic, not specific, but just basic ideas can give you the keys to start training yourself. And now you can create your own fight or flight survival guide. That'll wrap up today's show. Until next time, I invite you to check out my website at livelikeeden.com. You can sign up for a weekly email reminder when my new podcast and blog comes out, which is every Wednesday. If you are struggling with your own awakening process and you need further assistance or guidance, you can also sign up for a free consult, and I would be more than happy to work with you. If you're enjoying the show, I ask that you share it with others that you think it might benefit. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.